You know, they say spying is the second oldest profession. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. It's this shadowy world of secrets and deception that has literally shaped empires, won wars, and toppled governments. It's a practice that's as old as human conflict itself, this constant, silent battle for information. So let's explore just how this ancient art has evolved over the millennia.
I mean, listen to this. Over 2,000 years ago, the military strategist Sun Tzu laid out the fundamental truth of espionage right there. And honestly, the core principle hasn't changed one bit. It doesn't matter if it's knowing where an army will march or what a rival company is developing, knowledge is power. This ancient piece of wisdom is the bedrock of pretty much every intelligence agency on the planet today.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How did we get from spies hiding in ancient cities to satellites listening in from orbit? Well, that's the journey we're on today. We're going to trace the evolution of intelligence, from its very earliest forms all the way to the complex digital battlegrounds of the 21st century.
All right, first up, let's look at the foundations. Long before you had trench coats and secret gadgets, espionage was this incredibly sophisticated art, and it was practiced by the world's great civilizations. What's just fascinating is how universal this need for intelligence was. I mean, look at this. In China, Sun Tzu was already defining specific roles for agents. In India, you had the Arthashastra, which was basically a textbook on intelligence. The Hebrews used spies in Jericho, the Greeks had specific laws for them, and the Aztecs, they even had these merchant spies who had diplomatic immunity. Espionage was a truly global thing, baked right into the fabric of ancient civilization. For centuries, spying was often kind of reactive, you know? It depended on individuals. But as nations grew more powerful and the stakes got way higher, that ad hoc approach just wasn't going to cut it anymore. A revolution was needed, and it came from Elizabethan England, where espionage was forged into a true weapon of the state.
Meet Sir Francis Walsingham, Queen Elizabeth I's spy master. This guy wasn't just some administrator, he was a revolutionary. He inherited a world of messy, disorganized intelligence. But Elizabeth's throne was under constant threat, so being reactive was basically a death sentence. He changed the whole game. His method was systematic, proactive, and state-funded. He didn't wait for threats to emerge. He built a centralized network to actively hunt them down. You can really see that shift right here, from scrambling to survive to professional, state-run dominance.
So how do you do it? Well, Walsingham basically created a blueprint that modern agencies still follow today. First, he built a huge network of paid agents, his intelligencers, all across Europe. Second, he systematically intercepted mail and hired experts like the brilliant Thomas Phillips to crack sophisticated codes. And most importantly, he used that intel to act, neutralizing threats like the Babington Plot, which was a plan to replace Elizabeth with Mary, Queen of Scots. This was the birth of the modern intelligence cycle.
So Walsingham's model laid all the groundwork, but it was the industrial-scale slaughter of the 20th century's world wars that really supercharged espionage, turning it into the professional, bureaucratic machine we know today. And you can see how quickly things started to formalize. In 1909, Britain creates the Secret Service Bureau, which soon becomes MI5 and MI6. Then World War I hits and completely changes the battlefield, making old methods totally useless. By World War II, the United States, which was a relative latecomer, sets up the OSS, which would eventually become the CIA. War was the catalyst, no doubt about it. So why was World War I such a big deal for spying? Well, cavalry, which was the traditional way to do reconnaissance, was completely useless against trenches and machine guns. All of a sudden, you couldn't gather high-level strategic info with soldiers. This created this huge demand for deep-cover human intelligence networks. Rings like the Dame Blanche, made up of over 1,000 Belgian and French citizens, they became the eyes and ears of the Allies, tracking every German troop movement on the railways.
And at the exact same time, a whole new frontier was opening up: signals intelligence, or SIGINT. Intercepting wireless messages became absolutely key. The most famous example, of course, is the Zimmermann telegram. In 1917, British codebreakers in a place called Room 40 deciphered a German proposal to Mexico, offering them U.S. territory if they joined the war. When that got out, it outraged the American public and was a major factor in pushing the U.S. into the war. A single piece of intelligence literally changed the course of history.
Okay, so after the World Wars, the battlefield changed again. It became this global, clandestine struggle of ideology. It wasn't fought with massed armies anymore, but with spies and secrets. This was the Cold War.
The two main players, of course, were America's CIA and the Soviet Union's KGB. And while both were incredibly powerful, they had really different approaches. The CIA was all about containing communism, often using covert action and even subsidizing cultural groups. The KGB, on the other hand, was an absolute master of human intelligence, or humans, and counterintelligence, running these vast global networks to expand Soviet influence.
The tradecraft from this era has become the stuff of legend. You had moles and double agents burrowing deep into rival agencies, while defectors who managed to cross the Iron Curtain provided just priceless information. Technology took a leap forward with these unbelievably audacious operations to tap undersea cables, and right at the center of it all was Berlin. That divided city became the undisputed capital of this shadow war, a tense playground for spies from every side.
The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't end espionage. Nope, it just changed the battlefield one more time. The new frontier wasn't a divided city anymore, but a connected world. And just look at how quickly the priorities shifted. The Cold War was all about state versus state. Then, after the September 11th attacks, the primary focus for Western agencies became counter-terrorism, tracking non-state actors like Al-Qaeda. And now, today, while that's still happening, the paramount threat and the primary way to gather intelligence is cyber espionage.
Cyber espionage is basically the digital equivalent of Walsingham intercepting mail, but it's on a scale he could never have possibly imagined. And it's not just states doing it anymore. The Panama Papers leak is a perfect example. A single anonymous source leaked 11.5 million documents from just one law firm, exposing secret offshore accounts of world leaders and celebrities. That wasn't a state operation. It was a data breach that had massive global geopolitical consequences.
Which brings us to our final question. We've gone from messengers on foot to data packets flying across the globe in milliseconds. The technology is worlds apart, obviously, but think back to Sun Tzu. Know the enemy and know yourself. Has that core principle, that fundamental human drive to gain an advantage through secret knowledge, has it really changed at all? It seems like the game may have changed, but the rules just might be the same.